Hi, I'm Anne Coppens, the CEO of Balanced Exec, and I want to take you on a little history lesson on the evolution of work-life balance and my thinking around the whole thing. So let's start. The early Greeks were probably the most empowered individuals at that point in time, although, maybe in Egypt there was more, but not as documented. Well, the early Greeks loved to focus on personal development. They felt work was for slaves. And if you remember correctly, you had all these philosophers like Plato, Aristotle, and Socrates. All sorts of different arts were studied. I think as part of my education with Latin, I had to study the seven liberal arts, and some of them included speaking, writing, and they were really into learning and developing themselves, and that was considered a virtue. Now, also notice that this was mostly men learning. There's very few documented reviews of women learning. Work was for slaves. I'm not sure where the role of the woman was in this situation so far. Anyhow, moving on, the trades. And I suppose trades have been there as long as most of us can remember the history or were taught history in school. And more trades became something that you really needed to be crafted and learning from a craftsman. So a skilled artisan was someone that you paid for their work. And again, around the Greek Roman times, this is exactly when this started to develop as an art. So we valued the skills of the craftsmen, and we valued the fact that they had put time, love, energy, etc. into creating whatever it was that they created. A little bit later then, in Calvin and Lutheran times, they started to see work as a commandment. It was a moral obligation. It was our duty as citizens to work in society. And this is where this idea of doing a good day's work came from. So you had a concept of work ethic starting to come around. Benjamin Franklin then pushed it a little bit further again, and he said, well, work is a virtue. It's not a means to wealth, but it's a contribution to yourself. So, meaning that you actually developed more as an individual when you delivered work, that it was a valued thing to do, and that everybody should and ought to be working in order to bring out the best in themselves. Then, of course, once we started working both with our hands and with our heads, there was a gentle competition coming up between craftsmen and professionals. And more, the bias headed for headwork, like, for example, legal, accounting, as opposed to the traditional crafts like electrics and plumbing, etc. So one was seen or esteemed better than the other and came with more esteem. And I think to this day in society, there may still well be a bit of leftover of this debate. And you know yourself, there's always a bit of gentle banter between craftsmen and professionals at any party I've been to. At least that has been the case. Now, in the industrial age, then, there was this idea of scientific management popping out of nowhere. And these are the times where studies such as, having workers give input to the light, to the conditions, to the working atmosphere, was having an effect on productivity, and that was being measured. So people were basically reduced to elements of input or non-input, and it was, try to be force-fed into mathematical models, etc. So again, quite an interesting new development of the whole area of work. Now, unions also came up around about the same time because employers and managers saw workers as objects. I mean, if you're going to apply a mathematical model to work, then obviously the view of a worker is not necessarily that of a valuable resource, probably. So unions helped give workers a voice and helped gain their livelihood in fair and in a better condition, or better, with basically better conditions, terms, and pay, so that it would be safer for everyone. Things like child labor, etc., were all addressed thanks to unions. So, and to this day, we still have union cultures in some parts of society. So, in some industries more than others. And they still have a say, and can often be a very valuable source of input, but can also be the opposite, a very resisting source of non change. So, it can be both. So, depending on how helpful they are, make your own mind up, I guess. In the 1950s, we saw the beginning of an understanding of a culture of work. And, you basically join an organization, you had a job for life, and loyalty to the organization became the norm. So if you had a good job and a good employer, you stuck with them. Come hell or high water, you would, do whatever it took to make sure that the business worked and worked well. So company loyalty and long careers in one place were pretty much the standard, which is also why organizations could impose their own culture on a job or a position and a group of workers. So if you all work together, you had that in common. So there's a cultural part of work starting to establish. In the 1970s, then, democracy started to enter the workplace. And I guess with the 60s just as a recent memory where everything was possible and democracy really coming into its own in terms of politics. In the 70s, this entered the workplace, and the debate started around gender, races, and equality. So, can women and men do the same kinds of jobs? Does racial difference mean that you're lesser or better or equally capable? So these debates started to rear up, and in actual fact, they are still ongoing. Because if you look at the whole gender issue, that to this day is not resolved. And globally, there is now movements towards changing it. We're still not there, but it started in the 70s. In the 1980s, then, we had gurus. We loved our gurus. And, they wanted to make work meaningful. You had to have a purpose to life, so therefore also a purpose to work. And one of those great guru type strategies that most of us probably have some recollection of was total quality management, or any of the quality kind of driven programs started round about the 80s, like the ISO standards, excellence brands, measuring things around continuous improvements, things like Kaizen and, you know, Six Sigma. Those started to develop in the 80s, and we continued developing them through the 1990s. In the 1990s, when I was pretty much starting my career in the late 90s, things like empowerment and team building were the definite buzzwords of the day. And I worked in business process reengineering. I was a change manager and had to help make sure that the business flow of processes was as smooth as it could be. And if it needed changing, we provided education to make sure that this happened. There was give the rights and the decisions back to the workers, and the more you empower, the more people thrive, etc. So this whole concept of let's make work a rewarding place was sort of built upon in the 90s. Now, in the noughties or the 2000s so far, what's happening? Well, we spend more time at work than anywhere else. We're questioning whether we live to work or work to live. And there is more and more a trend of fun and work fusion going on, or looking for work to facilitate fun and to combine both one with the other. So we have more and more interest in this idea of work-life balance, and some people have completely dropped out of the great job, great career mantra that came before. Some people are actually saying, hold on a second, my lifestyle is more important, and are choosing to maybe have lesser income, but have a more rewarding life for themselves. So the noughties are definitely challenging everything that has come before so far. Now, what did I say in 2007? I came up with this fantastic definition, and I'm still kind of half proud of it. Work-life balance happens when an individual has enough income to cover living and lifestyle expenses and has satisfactory time to engage in lifestyle pursuits, family, education, and career. So, when I was a TV expert on the Irish national television station RTE, this is exactly what I would be telling to people, to sort of say, make sure you have enough income to cover everything, and then, fit in what you can fit in. So, kind of promoting the idea that I bought into in 2007 also, of, you can have it all and go for it all, you know, make sure that it's possible. So this idea over time has evolved, and I'll let you in on my secrets. Now, in this economy, since 2007, I think everybody's experienced this global recession or depression or double dip or whatever you want to call it. Basically, what it means is that less people are doing the same amount or more work. So companies have downsized. So the jobs and the amount of work doesn't necessarily have disappeared. So you have to do more for less or more with less. There is a higher pressure to stay in the job. So people are sticking with a job even though they don't necessarily like it, because there is no real alternative. In the early 2000s, they might have job hopped a bit more, whereas now they're staying a bit longer just in case. Or maybe one partner in the family has been laid off, so the other one's sticking with whatever is still there. The need to manage work-life balance because of the increased stress in the workplace has definitely increased. And this idea of you can have it all has definitely entered most of our minds. But for a lot of families, economic pressure or financial pressure means that the first part, where you facilitate your living expenses and lifestyle expenses, is no longer covered. So that causes stress. Also, the perception of work-life balance practices from an employer's point of view needs an overhaul. So organizations expect more and more from their employees, but forget that employees also want to have a life. And I believe that employers are not necessarily keeping up with what the workers want anymore, and are not facilitating as much as possible a more work-life balance lifestyle. So facilitating life for people, depending on their circumstances. Thinking of young parents, thinking of maybe caring positions where you may have a full-time employee also doing full-time care for an elderly parent, a handicapped child, different things like that. People wanting to pursue further education later in life. There's lots and lots of reasons and things people want to do, and this economy is definitely bringing home or bringing back some core values to people. So it's making people think. And I believe employers need to get with it and follow the new programming, because more and more, and especially the younger generations, are challenging this. They want a life, they do want to work, but not at all costs. They're not selling their soul to the company mantra anymore, which used to be the case in the 50s. Now, what's my view? It's 2012 right now, we're nearly 2013 even, I dread to say. Time's flying when you're having fun, hey? Work is part of life, so make it enjoyable and make it as fun as possible, part of a day. So pick a career that you enjoy. If you don't enjoy your current one, look for a new one. And that can sometimes mean that you have to spread your income over a couple of jobs. Maybe your dream job is currently not paying you enough money. Well, can you do it? Take lesser money from one, start building on the other? I think income from the future and for the future will come from more than one income stream. I believe more and more people are doing something on the side, either a fun hobby project that turns them a bit of money, from arts to books to internet, multi-level marketing, maybe even an extra job, something that they enjoy or something that they need to do. Um, I also believe that you need to manage your own stressors. And I guess the key there is find out what stresses you. How does it manifest in your body? For me, for example, if I get stressed, I get a very painful neck. So then I know I need to start booking a massage because that will release it. I also need to obviously address the stress itself. But that's one way of doing it. So for each stress area, find out the source. If you can eliminate the source, superb. If you can't eliminate it, then you need to manage yourself, your body, and find solutions that help you cope. I also believe if 100% work-life balance is no longer an option for most people, I do believe that introducing regular moments of calm into your schedule, even when you're busy, is entirely possible for every one of us. And I mean, moments of calm can be a 1 minute break, a step outside of the office, a step outside of whatever stressful meeting or process you're in. It can be a 15-minute meditation every day. It can be reading a little book every night before you go to sleep or in the morning. It can be writing a little bit. It can be doing arts. It can be taking a walk. I think that's possible for everyone on a daily basis. And my advice to every single one of us is to introduce as many moments of calm into your schedule as you can manage. Minimum one, but ideally more than one. So that rounds up my whistle stop tour through work-life balance history. Hope you enjoyed it.